just released a report this June documenting at least 82 human rights violations by the SARS, which is the special police group that everyone is calling for an end to under the hashtag #EndSARS. And basically the accusations include extrajudicial killings, executions, unlawful arrests, victimization, arrest and torture, and it is unproportionately hitting young people. The SARS group, the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, and can you tell me a little bit why or what this targeting look like? Why are they hitting young people? What is this? How come these protesters are now coming together and calling for the end to SARS now?
Yeah, so because this country is a developing country, Nigeria, and it's a place where people they are kind of unaware of their rights. First, it's a nascent democracy, so democracy is still growing here. People are not too aware of their fundamental human rights or how to enforce them, and even officers of the Nigerian police are not that well trained to understand the basic rudiments of civil engagement of an armed unit of government. So it's a chain of problem. But what has made it worse is that, of course, there are limits to poor education of the Nigerian police, but to now see this level of barbarism or this level of sheer idiocy in their acts, or this level of incomprehensible callousness, it's insane. And of course they find young people as their prey, because when they hold on to them, their parents are going to come to pay money, their loved ones are going to come to pay money to release them. And more often than not, you find that Nigerians don't want trouble. They just want to be able to get their loved ones back. So they when they come, they call all manner of figures, $1,000 or $2,000 or whatever they want to call, and they start negotiating. And before you know it, they've paid and they've released their loved ones. And they found it like quite a profitable venture, and they started doing this. Taking people from the street. You can just be on your own without anything. I mean, it's hard to for someone who is outside Nigeria to understand it, because you can just be on your own, even studying, and the police comes and picks you up, and out of your curiosity, why they would just write some charges against you from out of the blue. You will be just surprised in what kind of a country you are in. So they just make up stories and put people in jail. So for young people, when you're carrying some hairstyle, they profile you as a drug dealer or whatever. When you have an iPhone, how can having an iPhone be like a means to profile rich or poor people? And I mean, do you want everybody to live in poverty? When you're riding in a flashy car, I have been returning from Accra one of the days with my colleague, and we were coming from road, came into Lagos, and we just passing through, but we had kind of a flashy car as well. And the next thing was they stopped us and wanted us to come down. Normally you do your routine checks and see who is in the car, check the lights in and stuff. And he just wanted us to come down. For what? Because we are young people, and we were, by his standards, not supposed to be able to be in that car, and have like a driver driving us to our hotel. And it felt like I was really pissed. I don't take those kind of infringements lightly. I was quite pissed, and we had some exchange, and I was really really pissed. And of course, on the day that maybe they had their senses on, and they felt like these people maybe know their rights or something. But for many Nigerians, they don't know their rights. They don't know from where to challenge from. And you could also be unlucky. So many of these officers are acting why they have their guns, why they are drunk. They have zero professionalism in most cases. So you don't really want to talk to or negotiate to someone who may not be acting in a humanly form. And yeah, it's sad that young people are the ones that have paid the price the most. It took a long time for them to speak out because they didn't know who to speak out to. It's been happening so much that officers of the Nigerian police would tell you that they would kill you here and nothing would happen. And many have gone that way and nothing happened. Even now that the protest has happened, nothing is happening. It's just so it's
I know when we found out, like when the world basically heard about this, is when, I mean, you reached out within the UN system and the United Nations major group to the global youth organizations, but it was also trending #EndSARS on Twitter. And basically, this trend had been going on. The protests on the streets had been going on for months, but then suddenly this young boy was shot 6th of October, and it escalated, calling for like all these young people coming out calling under the same hashtag for 5 specific demands. What you're talking about, the immediate release of all arrested protesters, and justice for all the deceased victims due to police brutality, an investigation into police misconduct, retraining of the SARS officers before they get redeployed, and an increased police salary. And I think it's quite interesting what happened when it started to trend, when the protests started to increase, and these demands were actually kind of accepted by the government. Can you tell me a little bit about what happened in those days between the 10th of October and the 22nd of October?
Yeah, so there were chains of events that happened when the protest started. The government were watching to see what was happening. Of course, they knew it was not a protest to remove their government, even though they're performing quite poorly. But it wasn't a protest to remove the government. It wasn't a protest to tell people to resign or things like that. People were genuinely fed up with the policing system in the country, and they felt they needed to make their voices heard. It started on the first day. On the second day, there was a lot of coordination. There was a lot of support because virtually every young person or everybody at all in Nigeria have experienced brutality in the hands of the police. So there was so much support. There was so much coordination, all on the social media and digital platforms. People were donating resources. People were donating money for food. People were cooking for free to bring, for the protesters. People were donating money for medicals, for emergency first aid and everything. It was going really well. It was very peaceful. People were all fine until the point where the government sponsored infiltrators and some miscreants to come and infiltrate the group. They actually came in and they were opposing the protesters, so they were doing a kind of a counter protest and chasing protesters away. They came with official vehicles of the government as well, so it's not like something in the dark. It's very open. They came on very, very flashy SUVs, government vehicles with tinted glasses, and chased away protesters. They fought protesters. They threw things at them. The other days they were breaking their glasses. They were just provoking protesters to push them back from protesting. I think within these days, the government missed an incredible opportunity to first address this, and again to raise their standing in the eyes of the Nigerian people. And after this series of opposition from these government induced miscreants or counter protesters, it then spurred the young people to come out in more numbers and to be very resilient in the protest, because they had nothing to lose. There was 8 months of strike by university students. They are still at home as we speak. They're not going to school. There's growing unemployment. The poverty rate in the country is magnifying. The country has over 100 million people of its 209 million population in poverty, living below the poverty line. So there's so much things to protest against. So the very poor reaction of the governments to the initial protest in the first days spurred anger on people to even come out and demand for much more than just the policing reform. And then it went on for the
experts are saying this is extremely unusual for Nigeria, and it's taking like a lot of bravery to come out now. Protests are extremely unusual in Nigeria.
Absolutely. Nigerians have been pushed to the wall repeatedly, and they never protest. Like, for example, in Sudan, where they had protests, there were a lot of things happening, but again, it was the increase in the price of food material, for example, bread and things like that spurred incredible protests that took out the government. In Nigeria, worse than that has happened. Anything bad that could have happened to a population, to spur a government change has happened in Nigeria, and they resisted the protest because Nigerians are super independent. They feel like they do everything on their own. They provide their security, they provide their food, they provide their health care, they do their infrastructure, road, electricity, everything is provided by their water. Government provides basically nothing for anybody in the country. So they feel like there's no use for the government. They don't really care that much. Of course, they care that the government is not behaving well, but not to the point that they want to go on the streets and make a huge protest. So this was something that gained collective traction, and they came to the streets to demand this. And the first day's government agreed to the 5 demands, but of course, as we know in Nigeria, those were just lip service. So if you agree to a demand, what are you doing immediately to show us that you've agreed to meet this demand? Nothing was happening. It was very vague. There was no communication. So when it was requested the thing was to end SARS, not to rebrand or disband or whatever. But the government was saying they will rebrand them, and before you knew it, they rebranded them to something they called SQUAT, to change them to technical term. That was nonsense. It means nothing. It's the same set of people, the same idiosyncrasy, the same mannerism. Nothing changes. So it's just like an affront to the young people who have come to the street to protest that you are playing with their sensibilities and intelligence by offering them this kind of carrot and stick. So it was a missed opportunity for the government. Then now got down to the day where you had the shooting in Lagos. Because for the previous days, people usually gather at night, sit down, sing the national anthem, very peaceful, very, very peaceful, just to make their demands heard. They sit sometimes in front of the government facilities to make sure that important people in government are hearing their voices and are seeing them. And then how they now went to a live protest in a very coordinated attack on harmless protesters to shoot them live on the video, and which they are now denying in a very amusing way. It's insane. It's absolutely embarrassing for anybody. I can't, for the sake of understanding, I can't imagine that with the lives lost in this protest, that a human being can come on TV stations, on in front of the media to lie and deny that people died. How can you be so callous, so inhuman, to lie on in face of gross reality where people have died and you're lying about their death?